Do you guys know who Jennifer Love Hewitt is? Anybody?
Yes.
Does anybody here, Phil? You know who Jennifer Love Hewitt is?
Oh, I know who Jennifer Love Hewitt is.
Well, she was a bit of a heartthrob in the early 2000s. Was she not?
She wasn't really relevant to me.
No, Mary had no idea who she was.
I haven't seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, so didn't really leave an impression.
So Jennifer Love Hewitt is saying that she's very unhappy that she was sexualized in her 20s in Hollywood. She's an actress who's mad that she was sexualized by Hollywood.
You heard that correctly, folks. It says Hewitt is over trolls who keep comparing how she looks now to how her body looked in her early 20s. She says also that 23 and 25-year-old wasn't in her body. I felt watched. I felt like I had to be everything for everybody all the time. I was called sexy before I ever knew what being sexy was. I was 17 years old on the cover of Maxim, and I had no idea why. In 2002, she recalled being told to be sexier on the set of her rom-com Heartbreakers. I know that I'm supposed to be this thing for people, but I don't know what that means, she told a producer at that time, and noted how she struggled with people's perceptions of her. Quote, "It's weird for me when people are like, that's the girl that we wanted you to be. That girl was so insecure and so confused and trying her best. But this girl who may not look that way, I like who I am. I feel good. I'm fine." We totally believe you, Jennifer.
She was in a show called The Client List, where she plays a courtesan, if you will, later on in her career. She's become a very successful television actress. She's been on multiple shows. She was on The Ghost Whisperer, which a lot of people saw back in the day if you watched a lot of regular television. But it's weird to think, because this comes up a lot, right? Like the actresses that were 17 and they're on the cover of these magazines. Now, I think a lot of it is also because back then, I don't think the people reading them would have known how old she was, right? Like,
no,
it just wouldn't have been part of the discussion. And right nowadays, that conversation would be a lot more relevant than it ever would have in the late 90s or the early 2000s.
It's interesting. I remember when Bella Thorne was still, I'm guessing, a minor teenager on the Disney Channel. She was in a bikini on the cover of Teen Vogue, which is a women's magazine, a young women's magazine. Was she being sexualized on that cover, or was that image of her meant to be aspirational to other women?
Yeah. That, like, who actually decides that, right? If the target demographic is women, then I guess theoretically you're supposed to assume that it's supposed to be aspirational for women, because they're not trying to sell it to men. You said it was Teen Vogue. Like, I don't think they're really expecting like any boys to buy a copy of Teen Vogue.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So is that sexualization or is it aspirational?
We're going to put the picture of Bella Thorne in a bikini on the cover and put the feminist literature inside. Yeah. Surprise!
Yep.
And she also talked about how she gets accused of using filters too much on Instagram to the point where she's unrecognizable. She said aging in Hollywood is really hard because you can't do anything right. I had this thing a few weeks ago. I was getting my hair done and I had not a stitch of makeup on, so I threw on a filter. I really gave it no thought, and a bunch of people were like, Jennifer Love Hewitt is unrecognizable. And then another place was like, she's unrecognizable, and so she's gone to filters because she doesn't want us to know how bad she actually looks now that she's in her 40s. And I was like, this is crazy, right?
Women, you can use the filters. Guys, it's indignant. It's undignified if you're using filters. I'm just saying. Guys shouldn't be using filters.
I mean, the filters are meant to plaster makeup onto your face when you're not wearing makeup.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Look, I think a lot of it is the reason these stories are so consistent from Hollywood is because they lack confidence to begin with. They're very self-conscious. Actors are very self-conscious people.
Usually they are.
It's why they're so easy to control and manipulate them, because it's a field that requires you to put a lot out there. And like, if you've ever, like, you guys have, even if you've seen people who do like acting, like people here do stuff for Cast Castle, right? And like, imagine having to be in front of 100 people and give it your all on these lines, and who knows if you're going to sound stupid or not. Like, that's a very, very disarming experience, and they take advantage of the fact that the people who fall into the profession of acting tend to be very, very easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
They're insecure
and they're
narcissists.
insecure. So like it's not hard to
It's true.
imagine that a bunch of insecure people would then carry that through their 20s when they're being lauded for their beauty, and it would come back to bite them later.
Well, they always write the memoir.
Yeah.
Or they make the Me Too claims. Like, once you're not able to leverage your sexuality for career opportunities anymore, you then leverage
Your memoirs.
the value of all of your tell-all memoirs and your accusations.
I actually don't. Somebody says she's not hot anymore. I actually think she looks perfectly lovely for her age. She looks just fine.
She's also a mother of 3 children, and you would think that by the time you reach this stage in your life, like you're in your mid-40s, you're a mother, you have different priorities than endlessly spiraling about how you look and talking about it publicly.
She's been married
and defending yourself about it.
She's been married for 10 years, so she's beaten that 8-year. She's over that 8-year hump that we were talking about earlier.
That's a good example. So I don't know why is her appearance still the primary focus?
I mean, women are never going to be able to escape that, especially from this time period, because there was no middling women in Hollywood. Okay, I don't know if there was none, but you were expected at this time in Hollywood. It wasn't just her in I Know What You Did Last Summer. It was Sarah Michelle Gellar. Beautiful women were expected to be the norm back then. So you cast beautiful women that have a little bit of narcissism, a lot of insecurity, and you're going to get a lot of articles like this later. And we see these all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, did you know she was also in I still haven't seen this movie yet, the 2012 movie Jopia. This is a real movie.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, by Brian Vogel. Like, I got it. It's a romantic comedy centered around a genteel who pretends to be Jewish in order to win the affections of his love interest.
Jesus.
Who wants to go? I want to rent it.
Have you seen it before?
I have not seen. I remember when somebody was telling me about it.
I feel like Taylor told us about Jopia and told us that we should watch it. And
but
it's
yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
Jopia. I can't even.
Who wouldn't want to see that, right? So, like, do you think that the filter thing is also just a problem with the fact that people who are now older are going to be using filters as older people get comfortable with technology?
It's not even just older people, though. Like, I don't know what demon has to possess you to make you think that it's acceptable to put a Snapchat filter on a dating profile. Like, you know that those people are going to meet you eventually. They're going to see what you look like.
So if
eventually you're just hoping to trick them and rope them into a date, and then they'll be like, oh, they have such a great personality, I'll just look past how they lied about their appearance.
So there are filters that are just like makeup. If a woman wears like a filter that's just adding makeup, I wouldn't sweat it. Right? Like if it's just
But
like,
if it changed the structure of her face.
If you look like a different person, then I would have a problem with it.
Also, she says, I felt watched. You were an actor.
You were being watched. You might have felt watched because you were being watched by millions of people, Jennifer. Amazing observation.
That's just crazy.
Incredible.
And we've seen lots of these actors talk about how who was it? Sophia Bush, and I think the actresses from One Tree Hill talking about being asked to do like these men's magazines back then when they were younger.
What men's magazines?
Like Maxim and FHM and all of this stuff back then. So this was very common back then because the women of Hollywood were expected to be sexy back then. It was the norm. There's a $20 super chat here from Patriot American. It says, my buddy Jeremy is a tight end for the New York Jets, and he's dating. Wait, and he's dating and is
getting married to the same girl he met in high school. If someone is saying, since you're famous, you should cheat, something is wrong with you.
She
Yeah, I mean, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Yep.
It's a good rule of thumb.
And look at Jennifer Love Hewitt. She's been married for 10 years. She decided to get married when she was a little bit younger. That way now, hopefully her husband doesn't just see her as what she looked like when she was younger.
I feel like getting married often cures women's neuroticism to a certain degree and like makes them less insecure and mentally ill.
Think so?
Sometimes. Yeah, like, and so she's still like spiraling this badly about her appearance and is this neurotic about how people respond to her at this stage. I don't know. It just seems like once you're married and you're a mom, your priorities and your self-worth should be placed somewhere else.
Also, when she says like being told to be sexy when she doesn't know what sexy was, she's framing that as if it's inherently bad, when it's merely instructions from somebody who's creating art design.
It's kind of ridiculous to claim that at 17 years old you don't have a concept of what sexy means.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm not saying it's all appropriate and that was all okay and that's a sign of a healthy society. I don't think it is, but you're not 12, right? Like.
And now we've got We've got Sydney Sweeney, who's kind of the sex symbol of the day.
She is. Yeah.
So does that mean that in 20 years we're gonna have articles from Sydney Sweeney? He's like, look, I was on the set of Euphoria, and they were saying do these drugs and get banged by these dudes and be sexy, and I had no idea what being sexy was. I was only 22.
Well, unfortunately, the 2020s concept of sexiness has been totally obliterated by pornography. And I think there was a much more wholesome, image for sexiness in the early 2000s. Yeah. Like, you weren't going to see a Euphoria on network television in the 2000s. Jennifer Love Hewitt wasn't going to be... Yeah, but like Jennifer Love Hewitt wasn't being asked to do the same things Sydney Sweeney is being asked to do on streaming shows. It's not the thing that was acceptable in the culture at the time.
Cinemax was still a thing. There were still shows like this. There was just less of it.
Right, as there should have been. Less. Yeah. But Sydney Sweeney is now seen as this sex symbol actress of Gen Z.
Pat the plumber says, who's Sydney Sweeney? Who's Sydney Sweeney, he says.
You'll find out.
You'll find out. She's gorgeous. She's probably the best looking lady in Hollywood these days.
We saw this headline about how she considered getting a breast reduction before she turned 18, saying like, as soon as I turn 18, I'm going to get a breast reduction. And she says her mom is the one who convinced her not to do it, saying, you'll regret it in college. And she now says that she's really glad that she didn't do it. She calls her breasts her best friends.
Thank you, Sydney's mom.
And she also said this hilarious line, the biggest misconception about me is that I'm a dumb blonde with big tits. It's just chef's kiss.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
She's great.
She also has been engaged for about 6 years.
Wait,
just thought I would
pull the trigger.
No, Greta Gerwig, who made Barbie with her boyfriend Noah Baumbach, just got married, and they've been engaged for 12 years. 12 years.
A lot of people were talking about that because he left his pregnant wife for Greta Gerwig and cheated on her.
Stuff.
Yeah, cheated on his pregnant wife with Greta Gerwig. I mean, Greta Gerwig, you're going to throw it all away. You're going to throw away your marriage and your family for Greta Gerwig.
What does this woman
Must
look
be
like?
an
Seriously?
absolute panther in the sack.
Doubt it. Okay.
It's the only explanation.
Oh my God.
To look like that.
Really? Yeah. I don't remember what the name of his first wife was, but left her for Greta Gerwig while his wife was pregnant.
Jesus.
Maybe he's just following through because like, if I don't follow through on this, I'm even worse.
Yeah.
Anyway. No, that's not what I think it is. I think it is now that Barbie made $1 billion and she made all this money off it with him because he helped write the movie. But she probably got the bigger.
He wrote the whole thing and put her name on it.
But I'm now that she makes all this money, he divorces her and takes half. Let's go! Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.